The night was a shroud of wintry chill, enveloping our house in an eerie, hushed solitude. My parents had set off for a weekend getaway, and I was left to navigate the realm of shadows and secrets that seemed to thrive in our aged family home. Our home, a relic of a bygone era, was a character unto itself. With its architecture steeped in history and adorned with antiques, it told the stories of generations. Nestled in the cozy living room with a book, the warm embrace of a solitary lamp cast flickering patterns of light on the aging wallpaper, creating a sanctuary within the inky darkness. The house, a venerable sentinel of time, bore within its time-worn walls the weight of memories. The creaking floorboards, the pipes murmuring softly, and the gentle rustling of curtains all whispered tales, secrets known only to the house and me. These sounds were old friends, comforting in their familiarity. But on this particular night, they seemed to have acquired a sinister quality, a disquieting resonance that reached out to me. The floorboards above me groaned with a deliberate rhythm, as though someone were pacing the hallway just beyond my line of sight. I tried to rationalize it as the house adjusting to the cold, the old timbers settling in the frigid night. However, the unease settled in my stomach and refused to budge. It felt like an unseen presence moving in the darkness. In an attempt to drown out the unsettling sounds, I turned to the comforting glow of the television. The artificial chatter of a late-night show became my refuge against the encroaching darkness. Just as I began to lose myself in the program, the lights in the room flickered ominously, and the television screen blinked into blackness. Panic welled up within me, and my mind raced for a logical explanation. Had a fuse blown, or was the erratic weather outside to blame? As I peered through the window, the storm outside appeared strangely calm. While I reached for my phone, intending to call a friend for reassurance, I was interrupted by an unsettling rustling noise from the darkened hallway. I hesitated, straining to pinpoint the source of the disturbance. The rustling grew louder, an eerie whisper in the darkness, as if beckoning me. I stood frozen in place, listening to the haunting rhythm of faint footsteps drawing closer, each footfall laden with a dark, foreboding intent. The dread within me swelled, like a tempest building on the horizon, and I suddenly became aware of a reflection on the blank TV screen. My heart raced as I saw the shadowy figure taking shape in the dimly lit hallway. It stood there, almost translucent, yet undeniably present, a silent silhouette that sent shivers coursing down my spine. Fear consumed me, and my limbs turned to ice. The figure remained motionless, yet I could feel its intent, a malevolence that seemed to saturate the very air around it. It was a presence that didn't belong, an intrusion from an unknown realm that defied all reason. Summoning the last reserves of my courage, I bolted for the front door, my trembling hands fumbling to unlock it. Each second felt like an eternity as the ghostly footsteps drew nearer, an inexorable malevolent force pursuing me. Finally, with the desperate twist of the doorknob, I burst out into the frosty night, rain and wind lashing against my skin. Seeking refuge at a neighbor's house, I called the police, desperate to escape the enigma that had haunted my home. The officers arrived with their flashing lights, their expressions shifting from skepticism to concern as they listened to my frantic account. They conducted a meticulous search of my home, their flashlights probing the oppressive darkness. To my bewilderment, they found nothing amiss. The creaking floors had fallen silent, the lights worked perfectly, and the shadowy figure had dissolved into the ether. The enigma of that night remains etched in my memory. The fear, the presence, and the inexplicable events defy all rational explanation. That night, I was convinced that I was not alone, that an entity from a realm beyond our comprehension had intruded upon my home. The haunting memory lingers, an enigma that refuses to fade into the recesses of my mind, forever a testament to the mysteries that lie beyond our understanding. The night settled in with a heavy, bone-chilling atmosphere as my parents embarked on a weekend getaway, leaving me to navigate the profound silence and restless shadows of our ancestral family home. The house itself was a relic of another time, steeped in memories that stretched across generations. Settling into our living room with a time-worn book, I nestled into a well-worn armchair. The soft embrace of a solitary lamp created a cocoon of comfort amidst the surrounding darkness. This house was a repository of stories, whispered secrets that seemed to seep from the walls. The creaking floors, the murmuring pipes, and the occasional draft that rustled the curtains were the familiar echoes of its past. Yet, on this night, these ordinary sounds bore an unsettling weight, as if they held within them mysteries long kept hidden. Above me, the floorboards creaked in a deliberate, almost rhythmic pattern, as though someone was pacing the hallway just beyond my vision. I attempted to dismiss it as the house's natural settling, an old structure responding to the whims of the weather. But the disquiet in the pit of my stomach persisted, like an uninvited guest who refuses to leave. In an effort to drown out the eerie sounds, I turned up the volume on the television, seeking refuge in the artificial conversations and the familiar glow of the screen. Just as I began to lose myself in the program, the lights in the room flickered ominously, and the television screen abruptly went black. Panic surged through me as I groped for a logical explanation. Could it be a power outage due to the storm outside? But as I looked through the windows, I saw that the night was far from tempestuous. As I reached for my phone, intending to call a friend for some much-needed reassurance, a strange rustling noise emanated from the darkened hallway. I hesitated, straining to identify the source. The rustling grew louder, an eerie whisper in the darkness. I stood still, listening to the ominous echoes of faint footsteps drawing nearer. The dread within me swelled like a gathering storm, and I became aware of a reflection on the blank TV screen. My heart raced as I saw the shadowy figure taking form in the dimly lit hallway, a silhouette that was almost translucent but undeniably present. It stood there, motionless, a sinister presence in the dark. Fear gripped me, and I felt a paralysis that I couldn't shake. The figure didn't move, but I could sense its intent, as if it were watching, waiting. It was a presence that didn't belong in my home, an intrusion from a realm beyond my understanding. Summoning every ounce of courage, I bolted for the front door, my trembling hands fumbling with the lock. Each second felt like an eternity as I heard the ghostly footsteps growing closer, the malevolent force pursuing me. Finally, with a desperate twist of the doorknob, I threw open the door and raced out into the night, rain and wind lashing at my skin. Seeking refuge at a neighbor's house, I dialed the police, desperate to escape the unexplainable presence that had gripped my home. The officers arrived with flashing lights, their expressions a mix of concern and skepticism. They listened intently to my frantic account, and then conducted a meticulous search of my home, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. To my bewilderment, they found nothing out of the ordinary. The creaking floors had fallen silent, the lights worked perfectly, and the shadowy figure had vanished, as though it were a figment of my imagination. The enigma of that night continues to haunt me. The fear, the presence, and the inexplicable events remain a mystery that defies explanation. I was convinced that I was not alone, that an entity from a realm beyond our understanding had intruded upon my home. The memory of that haunting presence lingers, an enduring enigma that refuses to fade into the recesses of memory. It was a night of cold dread, one that held the promise of solitude and the threat of unknown terrors. My parents had embarked on a much-anticipated weekend getaway, leaving me behind in the solemn hush of our aging house. The oppressive stillness of an empty home has a way of magnifying every sound, every shadow, and every unspoken fear. Seeking solace, I ensconced myself in the corner of our dimly lit living room, nestled within the worn embrace of my favorite armchair. A single lamp bathed me in a warm, almost protective, light. Family portraits on the walls bore silent witness to generations past, and the wood and plaster structure around me, bearing the patina of decades, whispered the secrets of time. These were familiar sounds, part of the living tapestry of our family's history, but on this night, they took on an eerie resonance, as though they were now echoing stories I had never before heard. From above, the wooden floorboards began to creak, their distinct pattern giving the impression of a deliberate, almost methodical, pacing in the hallway beyond. I initially dismissed it as the house's way of settling into the night, old wood and time-worn materials adjusting to the cold. But the unease in the pit of my stomach persisted, an ominous feeling that gnawed at my subconscious. Hoping to drown out the eerie echoes, I increased the volume on the TV, the artificial sounds becoming a fragile barrier against the unsettling silence. However, this fragile refuge was short-lived. The room plunged into darkness as the lights flickered and the television screen blinked into oblivion. Panic gripped my chest as I groped for an explanation. Had a fuse blown? But the world outside my windows was calm, untouched by storms or electrical disturbances. As I reached for my phone, intent on calling a friend for reassurance, a faint, chilling whisper emanated from the darkened hallway. I strained to identify its source, my ears locked onto the haunting sound. Then, it came again, a soft, otherworldly sigh that seemed to bridge the realms of the living and the dead. My gaze was drawn to the blank TV screen, its reflective surface now a void within the darkness. In the dimly lit entrance of the hallway stood a shadowy figure, a presence that defied any rational explanation. It was almost translucent, an entity with an eerie aura that sent shivers down my spine. Paralyzed by fear, I couldn't avert my eyes from this phantom. The figure began to move, each step deliberate and ghostly. It exuded an unsettling malevolence, a sense of purpose that I couldn't begin to comprehend. It advanced towards me, and I felt its spectral intent as if it were a predator closing in. A surge of primal fear finally shattered my paralysis, and I lunged for the front door. My trembling hands struggled to unlock it, every second feeling like an eternity as the figure drew nearer. It was as though time itself had become a malevolent force, stretching and mocking my escape. With a final, desperate turn of the doorknob, I burst out into the frigid night. The sensation of being pursued clung to me like a phantom breath on my neck. I sprinted through the chilling darkness, my breath visible in the cold air, not stopping until I reached a neighbor's house where I could finally dial the police. The officers arrived with flashing lights, their expressions growing increasingly concerned as they listened to my frantic account. They conducted a meticulous search of my home, their flashlights cutting through the oppressive darkness. To my astonishment, they discovered nothing out of the ordinary. The creaking floors had fallen silent, the lights operated without issue, and the shadowy figure had vanished as though it were a mere figment of my imagination. To this day, the enigma of that night continues to confound me. The fear, the inexplicable presence, and the haunting sequence of events remain a mystery that refuses to yield its secrets. That night, I was irrevocably convinced that I was not alone, that an entity beyond the living shared my home. The lingering sense of that unseen presence continues to haunt my thoughts, an enduring enigma that refuses to fade into the recesses of memory.